The date is March 3rd, 1913. Women are parading down Pennsylvania Avenue on the way to the nation's capital, rioting for suffrage. 7 years later, on August 18th, 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified, giving the female gender the right to vote. The males, however, had been voting for 124 years prior to the amendment. Now women have been able to vote for almost 96 years, while men have had the right to vote for 220 years. This is not just, and hence our case. Result: the United States federal government should substantially reform election law. Definitions. Definition 1, suffrage. Merriam-Webster defines this as the right to vote in an election. Definition 2, election law. The body of law that regulates who votes, when and how they vote, for whom they can vote, how the campaigns are conducted, and how votes are recorded, counted, and allocated, by encyclopedia.com. Our last definition, definition 3, substantial. Merriam-Webster defines this as large in amount, size, or number. Now we have one harm that we're going to discuss. This is harm 1, men voting. For hundreds of thousands of years, men have been making decisions, and those decisions have all failed, and have caused so much harm to the world. It was the choices of men that created the institution of slavery, that started wars, that made torture camps, and the live-action movie Avatar: The Last Airbender, and the list goes on. So why do we allow men to vote for people that run in this country? Clearly, their decisions have not been good ones, and unwise ones at that. It was men that elected Hitler, Caesar, King Henry VIII, Napoleon, and Andrew Jackson. It makes no sense to why we continue to allow men to vote when so many of their decisions are horrible. For example, men have tried to hammer nails with their heads and sticking their tongues to frozen poles. Clearly, we're not the sharpest tools in the shed. Red Orbit even shows that statistically, women are smarter than men. Quote, in 2010, some researchers created an online version of the popular board game Trivial Pursuit to study which sex has the better brain. 5 months and more than 15 million questions later, the researchers said women answered more questions correctly than men. Today's report says women, on average, score 5 points higher than men in IQ tests. According to James Flynn, an expert on IQ tests, this is the first time over 100 years women have scored higher than men. It is likely due to all the multitasking women are so gosh darn good at. In the last 100 years, the IQ scores of both men and women have risen, but women's have risen faster, says Flynn. To illustrate further how men make bad decisions, let us look at the Republican presidential candidate, Donald Trump. He alone is evidence of why men are terrible, but we're going to look at his supporters. If men are allowed to vote, he would likely be the leading Republican candidate because a majority of his supporters are men. Bernie Becker says, quote, fully 74, or I can quote that later, but moving on to the mandates, our plan. Mandate 1, overturn the Civil Rights Act of 1965. Mandate 2, repeal the 19th Amendment. The Supreme Court will uphold all the constitutional issues associated with the affirmative team's plan by declaring their acts constitutional. And if the affirmed constitutionality can be explained further in speeches if necessary. Mandate 3, eliminate all male suffrage. This mandate means that men will no longer be allowed to vote for the election of federal officials. This is also extended to transgenders. If someone is suspected of impersonating a woman through the use of cross-dressing, the officials at the booth may turn them away at the discretion as they would with any other illegal immigrant and underage voters. Mandate 4, the president must be a woman. This means that all voters must vote only for a female presidential candidate. Our agency and enforcement will be the U.S. federal government and the states within it. No funding will be required. Now, the affirmative team has several advantages. Advantage 1, economic progress. With men no longer able to vote, they can focus more on their work because they will no longer care about the political issues due to the fact that they will not and cannot vote. Men will no longer have to take time off during election day and can spend all their time working at their job, thus making businesses earn more profit because their employees, in other words men, will be working more. This will be great to the nation as a whole because it will not only stimulate the economy, but also contribute to the nation's overall GDP. Not to mention, military overseas will no longer have to file for absentee ballots, so we'll be saving money by not sending absentee ballots for the men overseas in the military. Advantage 2, increase in percentage of voter turnout. When men lose the right to vote, women will value their right to vote more because this privilege has been limited only to them. The greater appreciation of suffrage will likely lead women to exercise their right to vote more. Catherine Rankle of the Washington Post says this, but the truth is that women vote in higher numbers than men do. we have in every presidential election since 1980, and the gap has widened over time. In 2012, the difference in turnout was nearly 4 percentage points. The disparity was more than twice as large if you look at just those who have never been married. Girls' teams really do run this world. Advantage 3. Less votes is less work. Less votes means less time to tally up the vote and see who our president is, making the voting process less of a hassle. Also, if there is ever a need for recounting, the effort is cut nearly in half, seeing that there is about half as many people voting as there would normally be. There will now be 661.5 million people less voting now. And that is the amount of men that voted as a result of 2012 last year. Advantage 4. Worldwide stability. Unlike men, women rarely respond to issues by using violence. That is because they are often diplomatic. Girls love to talk, so it makes sense that girls naturally want to settle things peacefully. Even if the conflict continues, women tend to just hate the person through rejection and silence, rather than compared to men who start wars over the silliest of things. With this in mind, the world will become less chaotic. This is because America has always been the model and the diplomat to the other nations of this world. Lorenzo Jensen III says this: "Women make better leaders than men." The International Journal of Business Governance and the Ethics published research concluding that female-led companies are more successful than those run by males. A Pew Research poll found that the public agrees. Women make fairer, more compassionate, and more trustworthy leaders than men do. Women also handle stress better than men. Researchers at the University of Western Ontario concluded that women are far better than men at handling the stress of job interviews. Female brains also create more oxytocin, aka the cuddle hormone, than male brains, making women calmer under fire than men are. And that's just to continue. But even the Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader says, "People ask me sometimes, when do you think it will be enough? When will there be enough women on the court?" And my answer is, when there are 9. So even the Supreme Court Justice knows that women make better decisions than men. You see, men don't just make a mess of their rooms, they make a mess of the world, and only need to look at the wars of history and present to see the truth. In conclusion, Judge, men are horrible. Our manners are atrocious. We smell, we're messy, we love violence, we're forgetful, we don't listen well, we're forgetful, and we'll say we're forgetful when really we don't want to listen to what the person's saying. Women, however, are awesome. Women are sensible, diplomatic, beautiful, more clean, more organized, and thoughtful than us men. It's time to let the other gender to have some political power for a change. For over 124 years in this country, women didn't have the right to vote. It's only fitting that men should suffer what this nation's women have gone through. I'd like to end with a quote from Beyonce: "We run the world, girls." I'm now open for cross-examination.
How are you doing there?
I'm doing quite fine. Like, it's really cloudy here, and the rain I just love so much, although it hasn't really been raining yet.
Okay, thank you. May I please have a copy of your 1A?
Here you are.
So, there was a lot going on there. Can you please reiterate your first 2 mandates?
The first 2 mandates would be repealing the 19th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act of 1965.
Okay, thank you. You stated, for an example of men being dumb, in your case, Donald Trump. Am I right in saying that?
Well, I wasn't necessarily giving him an example of being dumb, but I do look at him as one example of why women are smarter than men.
Okay, so you are implying that he's dumb, correct?
No, I'm just implying women are smarter than him, for the most part.
Do you believe that there are women voting for him?
Yes.
So those women would also be considered not as smart as the other women. Am I right in saying that?
One could say that.
So do you have any statistics saying that all women are smarter than men?
No, there are always maybe occasional few, depending on how you view the smarter and what education they have achieved too, but...
Okay. And you're a man,
Yes.
obviously, and you're taking away your own voting right?
Of course.
But I can see that we're both here. We're both very intelligent, I would say. We're doing debate. Why would we not want to excel in intelligence? And you're saying that men are not smart. We are not as educated as women, and we do not have the ability to make smarter decisions.
What I was saying is that women are smarter than us men. That they make better choices than us.
Well,
We
then
may
can you
reach
please-
a better
okay,
knowledge
thank
of
you.
something, but
Okay,
they
thank
are
you.
generally more wise and
Okay, thank
smarter.
you. What about men like Albert Einstein and Isaac Newton?
Albert
and all those
Einstein,
men
he
who were,
built the atomic bomb, a weapon that's caused mass chaos and destruction.
I'm
How
fairly
can
certain
you
Albert
call that as
Einstein
something
did
really
not
great?
create the atomic bomb.
Actually, he was the leading scientist in developing that during World War II. America hired him during World War II to help develop
Do you have
the
any
atomic
evidence
bomb.
to prove that?
No, because that's not something I was really planning on anticipating.
Okay.
It's kind of just history.
Okay, thank you. And you agree that there are not smart women out there, right?
Sure.
So if you're giving the voting right to only women, what do you think the numbers are with women that are going to decide things, wrongly? Because there's always going to be a wrong answer for women. Correct?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
Women can make mistakes.
Of course.
Humans are naturally sinful. Would you agree?
Sure, but religion must
Okay,
stay
thank
out of
you.
this because of
No.
our debate league.
Naturally sinful. This has nothing to do with religion.
Well,
People are inherently sinful.
You're trying to bring up the Bible in this debate.
I'm not bringing up the Bible. It's just a given. We both believe that, so we can assume that it's true.
Part time, please.